If it's a complete novice or someone who's very experienced at track driving, should be able to pick the book up and find something in there that will help them and that will move them on in their driving, whether it's the way they analyse their own technique or whether it's some of the basic techniques themselves.
I think essential is the feel for the car, and then to have an affinity with the car, a feel for the car, and then of course to be able to analyse that and then verbalise it when you come back in and talk to the race engineers.
There's plenty of motorsport instruction books already been written and probably more being planned, but the majority of them all seem to be about the very detailed aspect of improving your car's performance as well as a driver. There's very little out there that's about how as a driver can start from no skill whatsoever or no experience whatsoever and understand what's going on with the car and build up his experience and build up his confidence with the car. That's where I planned the book to go to, and there's sections in the book which specifically move away from the technical aspects of the cars and saying this is of more relevance to an engineer rather than driver. We're going to talk about what a driver needs to know. How can the driver feel? What's different in what he's done, and is that an improvement or not? I've been involved in coaching and instructing in motorsport for many years, and it sort of came across my mind that when you're working with a lot of novice drivers, you're teaching the same things over and over again, and it struck me one day that if there was some reference that they could use to, before they even get onto a track, to go over some of those basics and to give them a bit of a leg up and a bit of a head start before they even get on the circuit, then it means that their time on track will be of a greater benefit to them, because they're not learning from scratch, they're learning from lesson 2 or 3. I was coming home from a Trackday event at Brands Hatch many years ago, and I was thinking, how can I use some of my skills and some of my training that I'd developed over the years to put it to good use and to help out novice drivers in that way. And the best way I could think of doing was write it all down, and so when I got home I opened up my laptop and started typing. I met Adrian, thinking back it must be about 5 or 6 years ago now. I was coaching on a track day, in fact here at Goodwood on the race circuit here, and I was asked by the guy that was running the track day if I could look after a special guest for the day. When he turned up, it happened to be Adrian Newey. We just struck a good relationship, and we kept in touch ever since. So I did a couple of days of coaching for him. That was back when he first started racing cars, and he had a plan to race an Analyses in modern endurance racing, and he had a original GT40 which he was going to be racing things like Classic Le Mans. So I did some work with him there, and I've kept in touch with him off and on throughout the years, and when you guys were wonderful enough to offer to publish the book, I scratched around thinking maybe I should get someone to write the foreword, because all these books seem to have a foreword written by someone famous. Who do I know that's famous? I thought, well, I'll see if Adrian will do it. Dropped him an email at work, and he came back to say, absolutely, I'd love to do it. So it was very kind of him to forward me his words. Thank you very much for doing the forward for my book. It's a great honour to have you write the forward. We met many years ago, 2005, 2006, somewhere around then, when you were doing a track day here at Goodwood. So I think what everyone would like to know, firstly, is were you a good student and was I a good instructor? Yeah, absolutely. No, it was a good fun day. I needed to get my racing licence, so you gave me some tuition leading up to taking the ARDS test. What he taught me was very useful, which was really how to finesse the car in terms of how you get on the brakes, not being too aggressive on the brakes initially, how you feed the steering wheel in, basically not being violent with the car. That's what is the essential essence of it. I'm sorry to distill it down to that, but it was a very useful day and I learned a lot from it. Thank you. I mean, obviously you work with very well developed cars, very well developed drivers, and whenever you put a development onto the car, you see it happen straight away because the drivers are at the peak of their skills and their abilities. But how important would you say it was for a driver when they're first starting out to get some lessons and to really understand the basics of driving?
I think essential is the feel for the car, and then to have an affinity with the car, a feel for the car, and then of course to be able to analyse that and then verbalise it when you come back in and talk to the race engineers. So often we've had drivers who go out and they adapt their driving style, they don't know they've done it, they come back in and they've perhaps masked oversteer by forcing the car into understeer, and they report the opposite problem. So being very analytical and then being able to verbalise that succinctly and really concentrate on what would make the car go quicker, not just that, you know, the seat's slightly uncomfortable and could you move the brake pedal 1 millimetre away. That doesn't make it quicker.
Brilliant. So it's about being able to, as you say, verbalise the issues with the car and recognise when it's the car that's changed or whether it's the driver that's changed.
Indeed. And if you're not sure, say you're not sure.
Well, thank you very much, Adrian. It's been a pleasure. Honestly, it was the Dukes of Hazzard. I used to watch the Dukes of Hazzard as a kid because I loved the car chases, and then it occurred to me that on a Sunday afternoon my dad was watching car chases on grandstand, but he didn't always know if the good guy won. And it just got me hooked. I just love the noise and the sound of the cars, particularly endurance racing and long distance racing like Le Mans. They'd show the highlights of Le Mans on grandstand every year in June, and I just fell in love with the idea of racing at night, headlights on, powerful sports cars, famous names, and it just drove me to one day get out there and compete. I started off, when I left school, all my friends were off to university. I decided I was going to get a job to go and be a racing driver. I bought myself a rather tired old Talbot Sunbeam in fluorescent green and just started racing in a club saloon series just to find my feet and see where I was going. And I raced in that for 2 or 3 years and seemed to be beating drivers with similar cars and similar experience and similar budgets. So I thought I'll see if I can move on a bit more professional. So I gave up working. At the time I was a civil engineer working on designing of railways, so quite different to driving racing cars. But I gave all that up and moved into the coaching world in motorsport. And from that point on started looking around for some more professional championships of racing. I moved into the Caterham Superlight Championship. I did a few dotted races the first couple of seasons, then a full season in 2001 where I finished as the highest placed privateer driver in the championship. Won quite a lot of prizes along the way, which was good for the ego and helped with attracting some sponsors and some money for the future. Then a couple of years later moved into doing a few races in the TVR Tuscan Championship, which is a very big championship in its day, and I managed to get a few races in that just before the series lost its factory backing. These days I just race for fun more than anything. I've got a classic Porsche, I do some endurance racing and that with some friends, and do the odd single make Porsche race here and there whenever I get the time and the funds. My main role these days is working for a company called Britcar. We organise endurance racing around the country in Northern Europe. Most famously the Britcar 24-hour race, which the Top Gear team did a few years ago. Aside from that, I do some coaching and instructing as and when I can fit it in. About 3 or 4 years ago I was invited by Aston Martin to join their group of instructors. They have about 16 instructors in total, but they cover the whole world. So we get to travel a bit, see some different parts of the world, meet some interesting characters, doing everything from track driving to road driving, and everywhere from future customers, current customers, staff, anything we can do to help training the techniques involved in driving the cars as well as the foibles of the cars themselves.